Look at changes of importance of sectors, regarding GDP and regarding employment. So let's look at it. First we discuss about developed countries. What is the tendency of developed countries? What is the pattern that developed countries are followed? We see. So at initial stage, each and every developed country concentrated on agriculture. So what do you see here? We try to show in a picture. At first stage, initial stage. So this is about we are discussing about what is the pattern of developed country. What are the changes took place in developed countries? Right, initial stage. They give more importance to agriculture because there is any country it is needed. Agriculture is increased. Let's look at first sector, second and third. So here it is GDP. Agriculture is increased in first sector means agriculture, industry, service increased, and the remaining two are very small portion we see. So the large portion, the large contribution to economy from agriculture. Now employment. Same, more people are working in agriculture. Here very few and here also very few. This is initial stage of a developed country. Initial stage. Let's move on to second. What happened? Here we see, why do we see more here? Because of new methods in agriculture, farming, what do we call? Agriculture, cultivation, new methods were implemented. So also same time in the society, different types of people increased, like traders, like craftsmen were increased. So because of all those, we see more production in agriculture, first sector. So we see more contribution to economy for the country from agriculture, and more working people are engaged in agriculture. This structure we see at initial stage. Let's move on to second one. Industries. So during industrial revolution. So during this second stage, let's imagine. During industrial revolution, what happened? Industries are established, factories are set up and expanded, and the people who are working agriculture earlier, they joined the industries. So that is the reason. So here we try to show that change in a map here, in a table here. Take the same one. It is first sector, second, third. So here it is first one, GDP. So GDP here, GDP little bit down here, and industrial GDP, industrial contribution to economy is increased here. Small portion. Here also same pattern. The people, why do we see here same pattern? Employment. So working people, the workers. See here who worked here, first sector agriculture, they shifted to second sector because of industrial revolution. A new implemented a mass production held in industries because of industrial revolution. Here see very small portion. So see the pattern. The same pattern, contribution of GDP to economy, same here also, employment, more employment in industrial sector. So these are all about developed countries. Now, it's third stage. Let us look at third stage. Third stage, so after 50 years time, it means present. So what happened? Service sector was dominated. Service sector became very important for developed country, any country. So we see the same, see first sector. So the importance of agriculture decreased, less. Contribution is decreased here also little bit, and here more service sector. So service sector is contributing GDP to the country economy. Same here. Here also the working people shifting. So here also they engaged more number in service sector. See, employment, number of people working, employment and GDP, same pattern. Each and every, all these three stages, we see the same pattern. Do we see the same pattern in Indian economy? Now let us see the summary of changes in the importance of sectors regarding GDP and employment. Here it is GDP, employment. In Indian context, it is GDP, employment. Now let's compare. These are all particulars about developed countries, that is, those are India. Now let's see for initial stage, what happened? The more contribution from agriculture, first sector, as GDP and employment, more contribution of GDP from first sector, and more employment also, more working people are working in agriculture. Okay, right. Now what about Indian context? Same pattern. See, initial stage, India also followed the same structure, same pattern, because government gave more importance to agriculture. So we here see GDP from more contribution of GDP from agriculture, and more workers from agriculture. Same pattern. Now let's move on to second. During industrialization period, see, so contribution is here shifted, changed from agriculture to industrial sector. So here industry, the second sector, shared more contribution of GDP. See, employment also we find more in second sector. Now what about Indian context? See, here more contribution of GDP from industry sector, right? Okay, it is correct. Now let's see here. So still the agriculture sector is dominating regarding employment, because there is no scope of employment in these two sectors. Employment, that is, jobs are not created, adequate jobs are not created by the government. So still the sector, agriculture sector is dominating here. Now let's move on to third one. At present, after 50 years time, so developed countries, we find this situation. Service sector and industry sector, these two are well developed. The sharing of GDP from these two sectors, see, and the working people also we find from these two sectors. Those who were engaged in agriculture, they shifted to these two sectors. This is developed countries pattern. Now look at India context. So in India context, though the contribution of GDP from third sector, okay, it is correct. But see, what about employment? What about workers? Still agriculture is dominating, because these two sectors, they do not find any employment. The government is not provided sufficient employment for the people. So still at present we see more people are working in agriculture. Now let's discuss employment in India in my next class.